welcome to another show. Today is Wednesday, May 27, 2020. I am joined today by my co-host, Carlos Ponce from Mexico City. I am streaming from Los Angeles, and today we have Aurora Benton, who is joining us from Georgia, of all places. Welcome to the show, Aurora. We're looking forward to speaking with you. Why don't we get started with you introducing yourself? Please let us know a little bit about you, and let's start with that.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today about a topic I love. My background is really varied. I actually started out in software. I worked in software services and have an undergraduate in computer information systems. And I was in the tech industry right before 9/11. So I was kind of on the bubble working for startups. And so I ended up finding myself in about a 3-year lull. I understand what a lot of people are going through right now, where they find themselves, unemployed and, oh my gosh, what's next? So I sort of, switched gears and pivoted and went into the financial services industry. So I ended up on another bubble when the housing crisis happened in 2008. So then I went into higher ed. I'd been told many times in my life, like, oh, you'd be a great teacher. And so I thought, oh, okay, let me try this. And just really fell in love with it. I have a really great intuition, even though that's not my formal education. I have a really great intuition for education and learning, and love speaking, and just loved really developing and mentoring others. So got into higher education, and I was working for a for-profit company and supporting some schools in Europe. And that company was sold to a European investor, and all the US support staff was let go. So I found myself in yet another pivot moment in my life, and yet another opportunity to reinvent myself. And I was finishing my doctorate in sustainability and decided, you know what, from now on, that's it. That's my lane, and I'm staying in it.
Wow, I love it. What an interesting journey. I think a lot of people can certainly resonate with that. And
definitely.
And I think some people, especially in the travel space, are probably saying the same thing right now with having to pivot. But let's talk about your company, Abstracto. What is that about? And I know you founded that. Tell us a little bit about that company, what gave birth to this idea.
Sure. So astrapto means to illuminate in Greek. And my mission is really about shedding light on social and environmental issues. And I really started this out with the hotel industry, hospitality as being my main focus. Then I really found a wide open door in the event space. There's a lot of interest in sustainability and events. And I also do some speaking on how sustainability applies to just travel in general, right? This is all very interrelated. And so my business, my clients are predominantly, convention centers, caterers, hotels, restaurants, also some nonprofits who are trying to address those industries with their services.
Interesting. So, Carlos, what's the topic of our conversation today? Let's go right into it. I'm curious to hear what Dr. Benton has to share with us today.
Absolutely, Tulio. My pleasure. And well, today we're going to be speaking about your sustainability legacy. That's the name of today's conversation. Lame excuses or lasting impact. Talk about an interesting subject. How do you overcome common objections that stall and prevent sustainability initiatives? So that's the topic. We'd like to start first by asking you next, Dr. Benton, why did you choose this particular topic? Okay, let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. I love it. So in my work, obviously, my job is to sell sustainability, and I encounter just excuses and BS all the time. And so, after, I'll tell you what's really interesting is it's not very different than when I was trying to sell technology or other innovations and change. It's really about people sort of have this mentality of, well, we've always done it this way, or other what I consider kind of lame excuses, right? What are the things that people tend to do? And I think the heart behind what most people give these excuses is not, I don't care about the earth, or I don't care about people, or I don't care about improvement. I think it's just people are overwhelmed, they're busy, they're confused, and oftentimes they don't want to admit it, they don't want to ask questions, or they don't even understand maybe what you're asking. And so I've been really working on a lot of content and presentations on helping people understand how they can recognize some of those excuses and objections.
Por favor. Gracias. Bye. Bye.
Sorry.
Carlos, you got to mute yourself. Go ahead. Go ahead, Aurora.
That's okay. I do these things a lot, so it's.
I apologize. I deeply apologize.
The dog walking across the keyboard or whatever.
Yeah, I deeply apologize. It was not a mute, fellas. So
it's okay. It's okay.
You get all kinds of crazy emergencies when you're broadcasting from home, right?
Yes, of course, of course.
So sorry about that.
I'm curious, and I don't want to use this play on words, but essentially, I mean, what you said is, with any disruption, there's a major challenge in educating people in learning the value of that disruption. And it's an interesting word to use, disruption, to talk about sustainability. But I mean, there's always those individuals who just don't understand what it is and what it means, right? And then there's also those people who are like the ostriches, right? They bury their head in the sand, hoping that the problem doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yet the problem still exists.
Yeah.
So if you had to break it down in terms of the category of the challenges of getting people to understand what sustainability is about and why it's important, what have you learned so far in terms of how people react? Are there like different buckets of individuals and how they react to these things?
Yep. And I think you kind of alluded to some of those categories. So one is sort of I'm going to stick my head in the sand. And I think part of the problem there is it's not so much I don't care. It's that certain topics are very hard for me to personally connect with. So I can connect with food waste because I see it. I have a harder time, connecting with climate change because I'm not like, it's stronger storms, or maybe I live in a city with, air pollution or something. It's a little harder for a person to say my activities and behavior and decisions and choices will affect this. Whereas food waste, when you go to clean out the refrigerator and you're like, oh, I forgot that cheese was in there. And, I know that that's my bad. I didn't see the cheese in the back of the refrigerator that I had to throw away. Right. So some of it is just how people can personally relate. I spend a lot of time in the education that I do helping people personally see the connection between their choices in an organization and whatever sustainability issue we're trying to solve. I think there are other categories like, I think you said something earlier, I don't remember what it was, but it reminds me of another category of this, and it's called, I think we're already doing it. So what I sometimes hear, I hear this in the hotel space more than any. Oh, well, we installed LED lights, so we're all done. Like the whole field of sustainability, check, because we have LED lights. Never mind that they leave them on all the time. It's just one of those things that people, like you said, that awareness of like, well, wait a minute. Let's really help you see the full scope of what sustainability is. And okay, great that you put in LED lights, but have you compared your utility bills before and after? Have you gone around and made sure that all the lights are off when they should be off, and so forth?
It's interesting observation. I don't know much about green or sustainability to be an expert like yourself, but I certainly understand at least human behavior, right? So as a life coach, it's one of the things I've delved into for many, many years. And is it that just people, one, don't want to take responsibility or be accountable for themselves? And is that partly caused for thousands of years? Let's face it, we've sort of been fatalistic in saying, the Earth's been around forever. It's always going to be around, and someone else is in charge of it, and we'll always make sure it's fine, right? Versus, I'm actually accountable to what I do, and that actually has an impact not only on the Earth but everyone around me, and ultimately back to myself. How much of this mindset causes people to push back? In other words, their unwillingness to take accountability. And also the sort of a little bit of fatalistic leftover that's around. And how do you get around that?
It's all about awareness. It is all about awareness. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier, because I'm all about making sustainability practical. It's about connecting people within the scope of what they can actually do and change, and helping them see the connection between those choices and some improvement, right? And so in an organization, what this might look like is, I do a lot of training on food waste, for example, right? So helping someone who is a banquet captain, right? So this is a person who's has some control over food and whether that food maybe goes out on a buffet. We'll suspend for a moment the conversation about whether buffets will ever happen again, but it will still be somebody's choice, somebody's decision to decide how food moves from a safely secured place out in front of people. There is a window of opportunity where that food can be rescued and then given to people who are hungry. The way especially with the events industry, the way things have run is it's all about like, let's keep everybody happy. Let's keep the food out. We want the buffets to look nice and full. And so we have built up these entire sort of sets of expectations. And some of those are based on, the programming we've had for thousands of years, right? Like, oh, I want to see all this beautiful food. I want to smell it. I want to, have all these experiences. And so we're not trying to take away from that. But when I can do some training that helps that banquet captain understand that a small choice they make in where and how food might get placed and being able to set some different boundaries with the kitchen staff, the client, etc., within reason and not to deplete in the overall experience of the guest, that they could make the difference between 40 meals going in the trash, going in compost, or going in the stomachs of people in their community, people they probably live near, and making a difference for those people. When you show them that, and when you see that, when you show them statistics and maps of their city, of these are where the people who have hunger live, and this is what they're experiencing, their eyes open, and suddenly that apathetic, why did I have to sit through this training all day mentality turns into, what can I do to be a part of the solution? And so it really just has to be broken down into what someone has control over, because when you're just telling them stuff that they can't change or do anything about, I don't blame them for not really wanting to hear or even try to make a change.
It's interesting. I know you have a question, Carlos. I just want to quickly chime in.
Sure.
It's an interesting commentary you just made, and it made me think about this idea of there's a big push for always abundance, right? To portray abundance, right? So I get this idea. You go to a conference, there's a big buffet. It gives a spirit and sense of abundance. But so some people might think like if we are a little bit cautious about how we do this and manage this, then there's a mindset of scarcity. But what you're saying is that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth, because you're actually making sure that there's abundance for everyone, not just those people that are present there. And you're thinking about the benefit of the universally of everyone, including the planet, versus just focusing on that moment and that fleeting feeling of the buffet looks great, but I'm actually kind of not doing my part.
Right.
Carlos, I know you had a question about the hospitality space as well.
Yeah, and now's a good time to not be on mute, so I'll take advantage of it. Okay, yeah. One of the things that I was wondering is, you being a consultant in the hospitality space, I was curious about the aspect of sustainability, because I have been doing some writing about sustainability in other areas, like in architecture and engineering and such. But when it comes to hospitality, my question is, how do you deal with resistance when something that you actually recommend or might recommend could sort of get into the way of the way that things are being done, at that particular facility or at that particular company or at that particular community?
Yeah.
Because what you recommend them to do might get in the way of, say, for example, I don't know, getting rid of a specific water body or something along those lines. So how do you overcome resistance, or have you ever encountered resistance? How did you overcome it?
Yeah. So a key thing that you just said is particular location, particular company, particular place, community. Sustainability is so contextual. It's so contextual for a few reasons. One, the people who have to really make the daily change live in that community. It's the people. I just gave you the story, right? So if you refer back to that, it's a perfect example of you can get people to care by thinking about their particular community and their particular job. Another reason that it's contextual is the motivations of key decision makers. most of the time a business case is needed, but there may be other motivations that the board or the executives or investors or whoever the key kind of stakeholders and gatekeepers are, that you need to understand the context of what that audience is trying to achieve. And I can guarantee you that you can find a way that sustainability can support, augment, enhance, and improve whatever it is they have in mind to do. The other piece of the context is that so much of sustainability solutions, especially when it comes to energy, water, and waste, are contextual to the location. So you can see these, again, this is why it gets really hard, right? So maybe I'm a hotel manager in Tampa, and I'm reading articles and watching webinars and seeing all this stuff about how I need to compost. Compost, you need to compost. Well, I bring up the example of Tampa because I have a client there and I know this firsthand. There is a commercial composter there that is maxed out. There's a waiting list, and the city is still in the process, and this has probably been delayed at this point, trying to get more capacity for composting. This is the case in a lot of cities. And of course, in a lot of Latin America and other countries, you're going to have situations where there may be zero composting infrastructure. So you're reading about this great thing, composting. We should all be composting. But how? Where? Right? And so the context. Now, I can go to a community in California, like Napa Valley, where composting is the law for commercial. They have brand new facilities with state-of-the-art, innovative composting abilities. And then, the town I live in, we don't even have, we barely have recycling. And it's not even curbside. I have to put it in my car and drive to a place that has a sign that says recycle at your own risk. I'm not lying. So it's
Wow.
so contextual, right? And so you really have to understand that sustainability is not a simple checklist that you could easily apply to everyone. It will take the work of understanding the context.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So in light of what's happened recently with worldwide lockdown, stay at home, and COVID-19, a lot of companies are going to need to reboot, restart, especially in the travel space. Is this, I hate to say an opportunity because, there's been such a pause essentially. Is this an opportunity to come back and do things better and differently? What can companies do to prepare themselves to return, in a way that's more sustainable than they were when they went into, when they basically had a lockdown?
Right. So first of all, I will just say on a personal note, this has been one of those sort of blessing in disguise type of things. I have some online digital content. I have run some online courses on starting green teams and on, overcoming these objections. And I do a lot of training, but most of my work had been face-to-face, right? I go and speak at events, and I do a lot of face-to-face training and a lot of stakeholder engagement kind of meetings and things. Well, of course, all that's like pretty much come to a halt over the last few months. And so this opportunity has been great for me to really dive in and focus on digital content creation. So I've been upping my game on video production and writing blogs, and my social media is, going, and I've got some interns that I spend time with, and I get to coach them and really make them productive. And so, I'm really from the very beginning of this had this mentality, and it really is it's a hard mindset. It's a daily choice to be very positive and to think, well, okay, there's not a lot I can do about this, right? I can't really do much work until my clients can start doing work. And I know they're sitting around going, when do we get to work again, right? And so what I can do is make the best of every moment I have to keep driving forward my mission, which is to shed light on social and environmental issues. And my vision is to see people who don't even have sustainability in their title or any expertise be empowered and equipped to make sustainability happen in their organization. That's what I do. And that's what my Green Team course does. And I love seeing that happen. And this has given me a little more opportunity to focus on that. And so I think that just generically speaking, that's the case. Specific to hospitality, I could really talk way more than my allotted time here on the opportunities to reboot with a resilient mindset of sustainability, and especially to leverage technology that's been around for a while. The hospitality event space is not a particularly high-tech space when it comes to just the execution of these things. In some, there's of course a spectrum of that. And it's really an opportunity to look at how technology can be used and better leveraged, data better leveraged to make choices and decisions that would make for more sustainable outcomes.
So if you had to pick, go ahead, Carlos, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I was listening to you and I was kind of wondering, and I'm going back to the topic or the name of today's conversation. What sort of lame excuses have you encountered that prevent people and companies to actually leave a legacy, a sustainable legacy or a lasting impact? What would you tell to these people in these companies that are actually making up lame excuses so that they just stop making them?
Yeah. So I've mentioned a few earlier, and this was a great opportunity to talk about a couple more that I tend to do. So one of those is the excuse that employees won't do the work. Okay. And there's a whole realm of kind of cousin excuses underneath that. And it's, we can't start a green team because we have too many language barriers or too many different languages in our staff. And, their schedules are all over the place. Or they're not going to spend an extra 5 minutes here to do anything about food waste. I mean, I hear things like that a lot. And of course, any place where there's unions, it's exacerbated. It's even more so. But I know from first of all, we were talking about this earlier, human behavior, right? Mm-hmm. It can't treat employees like they're heartless, mindless people that don't want to do good for their community. And I have seen every single time I have done training with clients, every single time I train staff, I see hearts begin to beat, eyes open, and an awareness and an excitement to be involved in things. So I don't buy the excuse that employees won't do it. I think that's a lame excuse, and I think that goes counter to the trend we had been seeing more and more about employee engagement, employee satisfaction. The hospitality industry before this pandemic happened was facing a tremendous labor shortage. Right. And so getting and keeping good talent is challenging. And there is study after study after study that shows that the younger generations are looking for companies that have purpose and their brands and their missions and the way they walk the talk about sustainability and purpose. And what I've also found, though, is that very few companies are good at really providing the specific opportunities. And so with my green team course, a lot of college students go through that. And those college students start green teams in multilingual environments, in high pressure hospitality environments, and they get stuff done because they care and because I've given them just a step-by-step, easy process to follow, right? So I think that is one of the lame and really frustrating excuses that I hear. I'm happy to share more, but I don't want to go on and on.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Celia.
Those are absolutely lame excuses. I mean, it's human nature to want really three things, right? A sense of belonging, meaning, and the ability to have an impact. And organizations that just don't get that don't understand that employees want to have a sense of belonging, and not just belonging in the team, but a sense of belonging in overall, and wants to do things that are meaningful and that want to have an impact, not just in the companies they're in, but in the world around them. They're not going to exist in the next 10 years. They're just going to become dinosaurs. So for those company leaders who are too scared to do these things or don't want to make the investment, they're actually going to hurt themselves long term. So shame on them for using those lame excuses. I'm curious to go into a little bit about what are some of the low-hanging fruits. We talked about rebooting, right? Some industries are going to need to reboot, the travel industry, the hospitality industry. What are some low-hanging fruits that organizations and companies ought to think about as they reboot that they can implement like right now as they come back sort of to life, so to speak? What are some of the low-hanging fruits?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, start a green team, right? And I don't mean 15 minutes, the last 15 minutes of another meeting you hold. And I don't mean just the executive and department level people. I mean a green team that integrates every level of the organization and every department. You can do it virtually. You can set up a Slack channel or WhatsApp or whatever. There's all kinds of great technology, and you may already have those things in place. Have a green team. Just to at least have dialogue and conversation. Have a green team. That is low hanging because it's pretty much free. Like, I mean, it's close to free, right? It's just a little bit of people's time. And if you're willing to invest and they're willing to invest, it's a great payoff. So I would say that is an easy low hanging fruit. I think another really great low hanging fruit is to look into developing buy local programs. I don't have the time here to really explain it, but I'm just going to plant that seed, put that out there. And if anybody wants to talk more about that, happy to. I do webinars and stuff on that topic. Love the idea of supporting local communities, entrepreneurship. There's just multiple benefits and sustainability outcomes with that kind of strategy. I think another is to really take a pause and think about the human health impacts of all the disinfectants and cleaning and everything. There are toxic side effects, and not all, just because it cleans doesn't mean it's actually healthy for us. And there are some interesting studies out there that talk about the cancer-causing chemicals or the lung deterioration of custodial workers. And so before we get to let's spray and clean and everything, let's make sure that we are caring for the people who are out there on the front line doing that work. And so let's make sure we're researching and understanding the human health impact. And then the other thing would be plastics. Everybody keeps asking me about plastics, the gloves, the masks, all the plastics. It's going to be a mess for a while. So start thinking and questioning whether you need to use all the plastics you're using, and really do a little research and determine, are you believing the truth about the plastics you're using and needing, or, is there maybe a better opportunity, especially when it comes to compostable serviceware or things like that?
Nothing like education, sounds like. The more people can get educated, the better. And speaking of education, for those of us a little green on this topic, what is a green team? Please explain that real quick.
Glad you asked. So it can go by a lot of different names. It doesn't have to just be green sustainability stuff. It can be a community care group. It can be the sustainability champions. Call it whatever you want. But the point of it is that in a lot of organizations, especially let's talk about the hospitality industry, right? A lot of the big brands will have a sustainability department at the corporate level, but an individual hotel or restaurant a lot of times is rather disconnected for a lot of reasons that are really legitimate. So no criticism here from what those initiatives are. And so you don't necessarily have somebody at the property level. And this goes, even if you're not in hospitality, you can apply this to any industry. In your location, you probably don't have a sustainability department. There's probably no one who has the title sustainability, for their job description. So it tends to be kind of an add-on, right? This person has an interest. Oh, who's that guy who always rides his bike to work? Maybe he cares. Or the person who pulls together volunteers. It's taking these people from different departments who are interested in sustainability and to start figuring out what are some things that we can do as a team, right? What can we prioritize? What do we have budget for? What's our wish list? How can we educate ourselves and our peers on what this even means for our location, for our team, for our customers, for our community, our vendors, etc. So it's really a volunteer team. It does tend to be a volunteer team, and it can be 2 people. But I've known of teams that were 35 people and spanned multiple organizations that were coming together under one roof. So it's really just about a grassroots effort. And it's not just all the people who raise their hand and say, I love sustainability, right? So you're not just going out and cherry picking the tree huggers. It's also those people who are like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't want to be a part of this. Inviting their voice into the conversation and understanding what their resistance is and getting them to be champions. It's just absolutely vital. So hopefully that helps and you get a better sense of what a green team is.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's easier
bottom up.
Yeah, I think it's easier to invite like-minded people to your cause, right? I think the challenge is to reel in those who are not even aware of that they need to do stuff, right? And that's a real challenge. That's worth something that's worth tackling, I would say.
Well, and I will
Definitely.
tell you that the college students who take my class, what I see over and over again is they will let me know that they had a hard time at first. Might find 2 or 3 people, but I hear over and over and over and over again, I hear, oh my gosh, I bonded with people that I'd never even really talked to. Under this, like, we work in the same organization. They bonded with people they never talked to. After we met for a few times and we went and did this one beach cleanup, all of a sudden other people wanted to be involved. Everybody else started coming and asking, how do I get involved? And what do I do to be part of this? So I hear stories like that. And the other one I hear a lot is, at first my manager was like, okay, sure, fine, we'll do whatever. And then by the time there's 3 or 4 months in, that manager sees that person as leadership potential. They start going to that person for more responsibility. They start trusting what that person is proposing. And a lot of times, because what my course does is really emphasizes the business case, they start to understand, like, oh, this isn't just some pet project. This person's actually, this team's saving me money. This is actually helping my business. I hear that over and over and over and over and over again. So it works.
Well, sounds great, Aurora. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. We're up on time. It sounds to me like the lowest hanging fruit is companies always looking for volunteering opportunities. Sometimes they're looking for organization outside of their own to create opportunities for employees, but it sounds like they could create something right in their own backyard. Put a green team together, start education, start building some grassroots campaigns around sustainability. That's a brilliant idea. It's so easy to implement. Anybody could do that. So hopefully those listening can take that to heart and put that into practice. Carlos, thanks for joining today. We're done. We have the recap show coming up Monday. We're going to recap the past 2 shows. We didn't have one this past Monday because it was a holiday, but maybe we'll recap 4 shows this coming Monday. We'll see if we can make that happen in 10 minutes. So for those of you who didn't catch the shows yesterday and today, we'll have a recap of the key points in a 10-minute period. So join us on next Monday. And then what's coming up for next week, Carlos?
Sure, Tulio. Absolutely. We have 2 shows next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. The one on Tuesday is going to be about, it's titled The Challenges of Quality Screen Time, or Does Streaming Storybooks Crack the Code? And that's going to be with Shannon Becks, artist and performer, and also entrepreneur, and Russell Herzl, the CCO and COO of the co-founders of Vooks with a V. Vooks with a V. That's a digital book streaming platform. And also on Wednesday, we're going to be speaking with Laurie McCabe. She is the founder of the SMB Group, which is a technology industry research, analysis, and consulting firm focused on technology adoption and trends. And the topic is going to be AI and software. No, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. She hasn't sent me the topic yet. So this was okay. So I was wrong.
That was yesterday's topic. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, she hasn't sent me the topic yet.
And, well, it sounds like it'll be interesting overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Look
All
forward
right,
to that.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. See you on Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific.
See you soon. Thank you. Thank you so much.